Call all hands. Beat to quarters. Run out the guns. Stand by the starboard battery.
One broadside into it, if you please, Captain Bush.
Pointers on target. Linstocks ready. Aye, sir. Ready. Fire!
Presenting Michael Redgrave as C.S. Forrester's indomitable man of the sea, Horatio Hornblower.
I now realize that many of my worries arose from the severe restrictions I used to place on myself in those days. My constant determination to appear strong and taciturn to my officers and men. My fear of showing the slightest unbending lest it be construed as weakness. These things imposed on me the strain of eternal vigilance. Yet, even without these unnatural restraints, there was enough on my mind. Although I never discussed my problems with Lieutenant Bush, he was aware of them.
Stand down! Big man! Line 2 points of the naval passage! No!
Land. I was as excited as everybody else appeared to be. Land, after 7 months at sea. I desired passionately to rush on deck, but I must appear imperturbable and confident to my crew. So I forced myself to cross my knees and sip coffee with an air of unconcern.
Sir, Mr. Gerard sent me to tell you land's in sight on the larboard bow.
Well, tell Mr. Gerard I shall come on deck when I finish my breakfast.
Aye, aye, sir.
Mr. Savage! Mr. Savage!
Sir.
I forgot to close my door, Mr. Savage, and please don't make so much noise on the companionway.
Yes, sir. Very good, sir.
By the way, what does the land look like?
Looks like a burning mountain, sir. 2 burning mountains. Volcanoes, sir.
The news almost brought me leaping from my chair. I called up a picture of the chart I had studied for so long in the privacy of my cabin. True, there were volcanoes all along this coast, and yet the entrance to the Gulf of Fonseca would undoubtedly be marked by 2 volcanoes. Was it possible that after 11 weeks out of sight of land, and after quarreling with my navigating officer, whom I considered a fool, that I'd made a perfect landfall? I rose, and remembering just in time to saunter, went on deck. What's all this? Has no one in this ship anything to do? Mr. Wood, I'll trouble you to send for the cooper and arrange for the filling of the water casks. Mr. Gerard, get the royals and stunsails off her.
All hands on sail.
I think I can see the smoke from the deck now, sir. Will you take my glass?
I shall go to the fore topgallant masthead. Mr. Gerard, please send all hands to dinner.
Aye, aye, sir.
I'm going below. Send a reliable man with a good glass to the fore topgallant masthead.
Aye, aye, sir.
dinner of fat salt pork in the tropics was not attractive, but I forced myself to eat before the gaze of my steward, who was watching my every movement with suppressed excitement. Paul Will.
Sir?
Pull out my best coat and put the new epaulettes on it. Clean breeches and best white stockings. Buckled shoes. See that the buckles shine. And the sword with the gold hilt.
Aye, aye, sir.
And please give Lieutenant Bush my compliments and desire him to step into my cabin. I took from my desk the secret Admiralty orders and unfolded them once more. I knew them by heart, but I studied them again until Bush arrived. Come in.
You wish to see me, sir?
Please be seated, Mr. Bush. We've now reached the stage of this voyage when it's advisable that you should know the main provisions of our enterprise. Should anything untoward occur to me, you would thus be able to act accordingly.
Very well, sir.
Well, the first part of the orders cover our voyage so far. They required the utmost secrecy so that no hint could reach our Spanish enemy of the approach of a British frigate to the Pacific shores of her possessions. I was therefore entirely prohibited from coming within sight of land until arriving at the Gulf of Fonseca.
Begging your pardon, sir, but I swear that order was penned by a landsman. It's not impossible.
The order's been carried out, Mr. Bush.
Well, only because you were in command, sir. If you'd let Crystal have his way last week, we'd have altered course and sailed slap into the Gulf of Panama and given the whole thing away.
We'll confine ourselves to fact, Mr. Bush. On arrival at the Gulf of Fonseca, I am requested and required to form an alliance with Don Julian Alvarado, who's a large landowner here.
Alliance, sir? With a Spaniard?
Don Julian intends, with our help, to rise in rebellion against the Spanish monarchy, and I carry arms and ammunition for him. I'm to do all in my power to ensure the success of his rebellion. I am, if necessary, to present him with one or more guns from the ship, and also I carry 50,000 guineas in gold, which I may disperse if I consider the rebellion would fail without it.
No wonder such secrecy was imposed, sir.
Exactly. Secrecy is still essential, Bush. There are other orders into which I cannot go at the moment, but I may add that the Spaniards are believed to maintain in these waters a two-decked ship of 50 guns. It's named the Natividad, and I am required to take, sink, burn, or destroy the Natividad at the first opportunity.
Take a two-decker with 50 guns? With a 36-gun frigate?
Battles have been fought and won against greater odds than that, Mr. Bush.
I know, sir, but Whitehall takes advantage of it now. If we should lose such a battle, no excuse will be accepted.
Seeing that we were sailing straight into Spanish territory. The guns' crews cast off the frappings of the breeches, tugged their tackles to draw the guns inboard, rammed home the powder and shot, depressed the muzzles, and ran the guns out through the open ports.
Ship cleared for action, sir. 10 minutes, 21 seconds.
Well, send a good man with the lead into the main chains and make ready to anchor. It was an open boat under 2 lateen sails and manned by half a dozen swarthy men. She hove to 50 yards away, and a voice hailed in Spanish. Owing to my 2 years of imprisonment in Spain, I was fortunately familiar with the language.
Your commandant? You are the Captain, si?
Si, Captain Horatio Hornblower of His Britannic Majesty's frigate Lydia, at your service. Whom have I the pleasure of welcoming?
Manuel Hernandez, Lieutenant General of El Supremo.
The name El Supremo puzzled me. As near as it could be rendered into English, it meant the Almighty. It is not to El Supremo that my orders are addressed.
Until lately, our Lord El Supremo was known to his men as His Excellency Don Julian Maria de Jesus de Alvarado y Montezuma.
I see. Well, it is Don Julian I wish to see.
El Supremo commands you to his presence.
Where is he?
Well, surely it is enough to know that El Supremo requires your attendance.
I would have you know, senor, that a captain of one of His Britannic Majesty's ships is not at anyone's beck and call. But you can go if you like and tell Don Julian so. I spoke as though the interview was ended. But my haughty friend was obviously terrified at the prospect of returning to his El Supremo without me. Suddenly he explained that his lord's house lay on the side of the mountain. We must go through a small town, which was hidden from us by the curve of the land, and up the hill. I excused myself for a moment. Mr. Bush, I'm going ashore. I hope to return soon. If I am not back or have not communicated with you by midnight, you must take steps to ensure the safety of the ship. Here are my keys. At midnight, you will read the secret orders and act as you think proper.
Yes, sir. Do you think it is safe alone?
I don't know, but I must go. Mr. Bush, a matter of greater moment worries me. This Don Julian is a person of importance, and I represent our king. Look, I charge you to be frank, Mr. Bush, and give me your considered opinion on what I'm about to ask.
I will do so, sir.
Well, think gravely about it, Mr. Bush. These best white breeches and silk stockings, do you think they're sufficiently immaculate to do credit to His Majesty?
Well, I may say so, sir. Your turnout could pass at His Majesty's court itself.
Thank you, Bush. Yeah, I pray you may be right.
And if there is any hanky-panky, sir, we'll bring you off if we have to move those volcanoes to do it.
You will see after the safety of the ship first. Senor Hernandez? I am at your service, sir. That journey to Don Julian's house remains a nightmare to this day. As we left the boat and walked up towards the collection of palm-roofed houses which constituted the town, we approached a poor wretch of a man who was bound to a 6-foot stake in the ground. The sun blazed on his bare head. His tongue was black and swollen.
Aqua! Water, for the love of God, water!
What is this?
Come, sir, it is only a man whom El Supremo has ordered to die. He is one of the unenlightened. He will die on the third day. They always do.
But what was this cry?
As I said, he is one of the unenlightened. Behold, senor, the house of El Supremo.
I regarded my ruined stockings with dismay. The servants who surrounded us were dressed in the same mixture of finery and rags as Hernandez. One, more splendid than the rest, hurried towards us with a worried expression on his face.
El Supremo has been kept waiting. Please come quickly.
The door swung open to reveal a long room of glittering white. At its far end stood a treble dais, and in a canopied chair sat the man I had come half round the world to see. He didn't seem impressive, though Hernandez was cringing before him. A small, swarthy, fidgeting man with piercing black eyes and lank black hair. I suspected Indian blood mixed with his European ancestry. He wore a red coat laced with gold, a white stock, white breeches, and stockings with gold buckles. I was mightily ashamed of my own soiled apparel.
You have been a long time, Hernandez. 11 men have been flogged in your absence.
Supremo, the Captain came instantly on hearing your summons.
Captain Horatio Hornblower of His Britannic Majesty's frigate Lydia, at your service. I fear that my appearance
You have
is...
brought arms and powder?
They're in my ship.
That is well. You will make arrangements with General Hernandez for landing them.
I thought of the Lydia's empty storerooms and the 380 men I had to feed.
I can hand over nothing, sir, until my ship's needs are satisfied.
Capitan, you are addressing El Supremo.
I'm well aware of it.
My water casks must be filled tomorrow.
El Supremo's eyebrows lifted for a moment, but he too seemed to realize that a breach would be of no advantage. He waved a careless hand.
Make known your wants to Hernandez. He will see to it.
There is a spring close to where we landed.
Thank you. Besides water, I shall need 200 bullocks, 250 if they're small, and 500 pigs.
200 bullocks and 500 pigs.
200 fat bullocks. Also 100 quintals of salt, 40 tons of ship's bread, and if biscuit is unobtainable, I shall need the equivalent amount of flour, with ovens and fuel to bake it. The juice of 40,000 oranges, lemons, or limes, I can supply the casks. 10 tons of sugar, 5 tons of tobacco, a ton of coffee, and 20 tons of potatoes will suffice.
But, Capitan, what you ask is impossible.
General, see that the captain's wants are satisfied.
But
Begin now.
Certainly, Supremo.
That is the only way to deal with such people.
Yeah.
They are no better than beasts. You doubtless saw criminals suffering punishment on your way here.
I did. Many.
Yes. They are incapable of understanding the simplest things. There are some who do not understand the obvious fact that my blood must be divine. They still cling to their old beliefs. My divinity, of course, is not a matter of opinion, but of fact. Your King George must have been delighted to hear that I had decided to act in concert with him.
He desired me to assure you of his friendship.
Of course. He would not presume further. The blood of his family cannot compare with that of an Alvarado. I find it satisfactory that you agree with me, Captain
Hornblower.
Oh, thank you. We will now discuss the plans for the extension of my empire.
I felt I must agree with this madman, at least until my ship was revictualled, though my hopes of a successful rebellion under him receded. He droned interminably on, explaining his divine origins. More recently, he said he'd sent a note to the Captain General of Nicaragua demanding that individual's submission. The Captain General had hanged the messenger publicly and had sent men to take Don Julian.
Some of those men were killed on the road. Some died while attached to stakes, and a few were fortunate enough to see the light and are now in my army. The Captain General is now at the head of his army of 300 men in the city of El Salvador. With your weapons, I shall move on this town, which I shall burn, together with the Captain General and any of his men who remain unenlightened. Perhaps you will accompany me. A burning town is worth seeing.
My ship must be revictualled first. Further, I must attain the whereabouts of a Spanish ship called the Natividad. She must not be permitted to take my ship while I'm engaged on land.
Then you had better capture her.
Yes.
I understand that she may be sailing into the bay at any moment.
What? Oh, then I must get back to my ship at once.
Insubstantial throne. Again the horses, the escort, the mountain road, the moaning prisoners, and those who would moan no more. But this time under a young moon which showed the Lydia swinging to her anchor in the bay far below. My boat was waiting when we reached the strand.
Heartily relieved to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Bush.
I hope you enjoy your conversation with Don Julian, sir.
We had some conversation.
I have maintained all precautions on board against surprise, sir.
Very good, Mr. Bush. I'm going below. Call me if there's anything to justify it.
Aye, sir. Pardon me, sir. I wondered, I hope your dress proved suitable to the occasion, sir.
I looked down at my white breeches, soiled and stained by the dirty saddle.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Bush. My dress was well enough.
Horatio Hornblower, starring Michael Redgrave, is based on the novels by C.S. Forrester. Music composed and conducted by Sidney Torch. Produced by Harry Allen Towers.